Games. Board games, we might be talking about freebies and giveaways, but I'm not gonna shout. If you give someone a free upgrade, then maybe for that person their day will be made, and maybe then that person will end up smiling and they will find that they are flying, and by which I mean are happy to be joined up with your game because of the frivolity. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m.ish UK time, Bezzy Beats and Board Game Blether. Today I've got Ben Downton. Thank you for joining me, Ben.
That's all right. Nice to be back again.
We are talking about doing giveaways, doing free upgrades, and we're going to chat about what exactly it is you did on your latest game found. Is that right?
Yeah.
And what you did, I actually I wrote that. I just realized that was a completely, if they back your Kickstarter. Yeah, I wrote KS.
It's sort of both actually. So it was to encourage people to back the Kickstarter and later on in the Pledge Manager. So it was kind of both things.
I mean, I guess it's all about kind of making sure people feel appreciated, making sure that people do. But can you give us a very brief overview of what we're talking about before we get into it?
Yeah, so the things I thought I'd talk about was kind of what I've done in terms of the giveaway, but also some of the way I suppose sort of managed that afterwards. So rather than just running a giveaway and saying, let's get lots of people to sign up who might want a free game and leaving it at that, I did a few things after that I thought would kind of work quite well to keep people engaged and to.
So this is your typical sign up for my mailing list. One person is going to get a freebie on this date.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, something like that.
And so you did a little bit more work, and yeah, let's actually, for anyone who doesn't know you, who is Ben Downton? And hello, Bodhi. It was lovely to see you at Spiel. I mean, just before we were starting, we were talking about how Spiel is maybe a bit almost too overwhelming, and there's too much going on that people are rushing from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and they don't have time to be like, yeah, this is really good, you know? I'm going to sit down for a good long time and play all your things. Whereas in UK Games Expo, if you can show that, yeah, my stuff is good, I absolutely can get people giving me that amount of time. But you said yourself that you felt that kind of pressure. But who is Ben? Who is Prometheus Games?
Maybe it's easier to start with Prometheus Game Labs because that's the simple part. Prometheus Game Labs is my game, I will say, publishing rather than design company. Currently have Micro Dojo. Oh, nice. We met at Spiel last year as well. So yeah, currently Micro Dojo and its expansion, Loyalty and Deceit, is the sort of two games that are published. All of those from the expansion are currently on a boat somewhere halfway from China to the UK at the moment.
Hooray!
Should be arriving. There's about there's 2,000 kilos of Micro Dojo. 3 pallets, 9,000 copies coming.
2,000 kilos.
No, 2,000. Yeah, 2 tons. It's about
2 metric tons. Wow.
Yeah. They're somewhere on a boat. I don't know where exactly. Last time it was updated was 5 days ago, so I hope it hasn't sank, but it's somewhere on the way to the UK. That'll be arriving in November. Also have 2 games coming next year, which are actually from other designers. So now I feel more comfortable with the whole process that I'm actually happy to sign other designers' games. So we have Microbots coming February next year, which is a little mint tin game from Simon Beale, and 99 Ninja, which is a spin-off from Micro Dojo, designed by Ivan Alexiev and Matt Ding, which is going to be coming. I'm hoping actually to launch the campaign in June, so it's live whilst at UK Games Expo. We were talking about that as well. So planning for June next year, but we'll see. The design work and everything's gone really well. It's just whether the Microbots campaign is all wrapped up by then.
So talking about your own productions and stuff a wee bit, I'd seen a couple of photos of 99 Ninja, and I didn't realize that that was also an outside design. I mean, presumably very much decided by, okay, Ben's all about the ninja, and maybe Ben will like another ninja game. And so it feels, do you think that this is the future? How what percentage of games do you think will be from you versus from outside designers?
I would like to publish more of my own games, and I definitely have quite a few designs in the works. I will say, since publishing the expansion, I found it really hard to kind of focus on design. And I think with the publishing side, there's a lot of little things that need doing, and it's much easier, I find anyway, to do like 10 little things in one day that are done, rather than sitting down at this sort of blank or almost blank page. I did spend a week in Bulgaria, actually. We mentioned I had a couple of months off work, and I had some time in between the acro yoga retreats, and I thought, you know what, let's spend a week in Bulgaria. And I did catch up with Ivan, but I thought, let's try and live as a game designer. If I'm going to do this more full time, let's see how it is to sort of live as a designer. And I found it was a lot of staring at my laptop, not able to solve any of my problems in my games, and then thinking, okay, I can't concentrate on this. Maybe I'll go to another cafe. Maybe that's the problem. I would walk down the road and get another coffee and sit somewhere else. And I think, oh, maybe I'll take a nap. And then that didn't work. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll play some
Oh.
video games for an hour. And it was tough working just on design. But I think what I'm really liking about sort of the publishing side is the development side. So, I see sort of, the couple of games that have come to me that we're publishing next year, I think they had some elements that I really liked that I thought would be a good fit, but I also wanted to push it in a slightly different direction. So for Microbots, the combat was kind of decided. It's a dueling game, another 2-player game, but the combat was decided by sort of a dice roll, and I wanted to make it a bit more sort of thinky, how you sort of try and outwit your opponent kind of thing. So I suggested to Simon that we look into a system of similar to combat systems like in Ankh, where you're playing certain cards, and the weaker cards actually have more power but less abilities, or you can maybe risk it and play like a card that will give you some benefit but has a lower power, things like that.
And
that's
so,
where we
yeah,
came
there's
up with
always
this.
this tension of what you are going to play, and presumably there's also some randomness in what you've actually got in your hand, or do you have access to everything?
In this, we have they're called power tokens, and they range from sort of 0 to 5. So 5 being your strongest and 0 sort of your weakest. But once you've played it, it's sort of permanently used until you perform a recharge action. So you can see what your opponent has available. We also changed. It used to be if you were successful, you just did 1 damage, and it was quite a sort of wasn't too grindy, but it also felt difficult to catch up. And the nice thing I think about development is I said, I say things to Simon like, oh, we want some more like big, exciting moments in the game. So what if instead of 1, it was just the difference between your scores? You could do that much damage. And Simon said, well, the problem with that is someone could just win on 1 turn and there wouldn't be much of a game. And so he went away and he came back a week later and said, I've thought about your idea and I thought, let's cap it at 3 damage. You have 7 health in the game. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's a great compromise. That adds some sort of excitement to the game where you can get some big hits in, but it also doesn't completely ruin the balance. And it's been quite nice, I'll say, as a development side, to be able to say to someone, I like this element, I want to lean more into that, or I want to have more of this kind of experience or something, and then they go away and come back with a much better idea than the one that I had a week later. So it's been really nice working with other people.
That sounds really interesting. I didn't quite get the answer. Sorry, what I was trying to ask was whether there was randomness in the numbers that you have available to you, or if you have
no.
all of. Okay, so you have all of them.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
you have 0 to 5, so you have 6 tokens.
Okay, got it.
And then you can see what's been used by your.
So you are going to lean into this perfect information, maybe with the teensiest smidgen of luck, just to keep some dynamic nature in your games. I think it's interesting that for your next thing, you're not going to be able to send it through as a small letter. And so that's like, hey, that would be nice to have.
It's going to be close though. It's going to be this big.
Sure, but I mean, it makes a big difference in terms of postage costs.
Yeah, I found. I don't think I have a box handy on my desk actually, but I sized the expansion, basically the retail version of Micro Dojo, still so that it will fit inside a large letter. So it's still actually fairly cheap to ship. Same internationally. Actually, I'm using a fulfillment partner for the expansion, just because it worked out better to handle all the VAT for Europe and things. But that box size that I've got now for Micro Dojo is 2 of them together basically fits inside a C5 large letter box. And I think I'm going to stick to that kind of game box size now. It saves having to sort of redesign everything each time there's a new game. If I can fit it in that box, then I'm happy. And almost like Tiny Epic, where you're going to get the same size box each time, but fitting with UK shipping sizes.
I mean, there's so much here that we could chat about, and it
Yeah,
would. I mean, it's a shame that it's been so long. Could
yeah.
almost have you on like every few weeks as a regular guest. And hello, Jay Guards. It is lovely to see you. I hope you're well. And I feel like we should now take a step back and
Mhm.
talk about how things have been for you in the past couple of days. What's life been like?
A
What
couple
are
of days.
some recent highlights? Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. For me, the truth is that yesterday, after doing my stream, I didn't do much at all. I did actually go back to bed, and then I'm still feeling quite run down. So I'm not going to playtest today. It doesn't feel responsible because I definitely have something wrong with me. And hopefully, I think I'm on the mend, but it's not just normal lack of sleep, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
Because, but yeah, I managed to get out late last night. Like, woke up again around 7 p.m. after sleeping all night and then sleeping all day, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, it's dark again. That's a bit of a shame. So, managed to get out. Was a bit too late to go to the supermarket. I mean, to the park. Went to the supermarket, got a couple of things, watched a super weird film, Greener Grass, where it's just this film where people swap a child, and then the mum's understandably a bit regretful that they give
Yeah.
their child away to someone else, and everyone just acts like this is normal, and they like the whole thing seems to be it's just a film where everything's a little bit off kilter. For
Mm.
example, for some reason they wear yeah, just it like the colors used, everything's in
Mm.
pastel and everything's color coded, and then one of the wives accidentally confuses her husband, and it's say, oh, sorry, I confused you for because John is holding my baby, and I
Yeah.
got slightly confused there. And then at some point there's someone strange in their house, and it all goes even weirder from there. So
Oh no.
it's just, yeah, I was kind of watching that whilst also reading through other things. But I'm sure you did something much more exciting. What were you up to?
This morning I watched the final episode of The Rings of Power, so that was a bit more
Oh,
normal than the what was it, Greener Grass? You said it was called.
yes.
Yeah, that was a bit more a bit more ordinary, I think. Yesterday I was teaching our first acro yoga class, kind of the season, out in the park. We've been indoors for most of summer.
Nice.
We had a really good turnout, and I was co-teaching with a friend of mine that, funnily enough, I met at the partner acrobatics teacher training in Spain in August. She also lives in Dubai, but we'd somehow never met. So we first met in Spain, and then came back, and we did a really fun class together at the teacher training, um, based on Dubai. We had people kind of pretend they were visiting Dubai and making shapes. So it was nice to kind of teach together when we came back. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Really nice being outside in the sun. Didn't get too sunburnt as well. I stuck to the shade.
Hooray.
Even in the shade, I usually get sunburnt somehow. I have to put on sunscreen when I go out in it's a full moon, But yeah, so that was a really good day yesterday.
I did actually get to do a tiny bit of writing for a game that I'm working on, which
Mm.
was, have you heard of the song I Love You Always Forever? It goes,
I might
I
know it if
love
I heard
you
it.
always
Oh
forever,
yes, yeah, yeah.
near and far, closer together. And so I, for some reason, got really into this. Like, I was hearing it on an album that I listened to, a new remake of it, and I was like, this is a good song. And sometimes I get really obsessed with a song, so I've listened to every single version of it that's
Mm.
available. And now I'm kind of and I was thinking, this could be a good concept for a game. So what I've
Mm.
got now is a game where one person makes scenarios and everyone else votes how long they would do this, whether it's never know, seconds or minutes,
Mm.
hours or days, weeks or a few months, years and years, or always forever. And then the
Nice.
person who made the scenario gets a point for each different vote. Everyone else gets points for every vote that's identical to them. So everyone
Mhm.
else is trying to go with the majority. It's like, okay,
Yep.
what will everyone else think? But if the scenario is sufficiently confusing, then hooray, you get to split the votes and get more
Yeah.
points. That's
Oh, nice.
basically the game. And I'd written up a spreadsheet, but yesterday I was okay. It's been a while since I properly looked at this, and I've managed to finally go down to the final 29 times 4, whatever that is. 58.
116, is it?
116, thank you. The 116 final lines, because every card has 4 things on it,
Oh, yeah,
2
yeah.
sides and back and forth. And that's
Are they
how,
square
with only
cards?
4 cards, they're normal cards,
Yeah, yeah.
but they've double-sided on one side, double-sided on the other. There's no back. And
Nice.
so we'll see how it works. It's a game that I'm hoping to release at my next convention, a Gamers
Brilliant.
Gaming Getaway. So that was our days. And Ben, you've talked about acro yoga, you've talked about Rings of Power. Do you think that fantasy is a brilliant thing? Brilliant thing? Is it a little thing which is brilliant? What's brilliant about it? What keeps you watching it? Why did you enjoy this?
Oh, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, I think, but I would say just habit, inertia. Like, I felt like I needed to finish watching it, but I've been watching House of the Dragon as well at the same time, and honestly, if I have to pick a brilliant thing, it's House of the Dragon over Rings of Power.
Okay.
Rings of Power was fine, but I think I've watched it this morning because I felt like I had an hour and I needed to finish it, rather than because I was super looking forward to watching it, whereas I can't wait till Monday for the next House of the Dragon. So yeah,
that's
House
not a good sign. So you're not actually recommending Rings of Power to someone who's like, oh, I've heard a lot about it, people are talking about it, should I watch it? You're saying, you don't need to bother.
Yeah, it's okay. I felt like episode 8 was so the finale was quite good, but I feel like, it's taken 8 episodes to start, basically. I think it's because they've commissioned like 5 seasons rather than having to do like one good season. Yeah, it feels like the first third of Fellowship of the Ring. It's just starting, and I think like, well, nothing's really happened yet. Yeah.
That's.
And I mean the book, not the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not been terrible. It's just been okay for me.
Well, let's talk about a brilliant thing. You love acro yoga. Let's talk about that instead. Why is acro yoga a brilliant thing? Brilliant thing. It's a little thing which is brilliant. Why is acro yoga brilliant?
I was thinking about this yesterday, actually, and asking people what their motivation was for coming. And for me, I love learning new things. But the thing I love about acro yoga, I think, is you're working with a partner, and actually, if we nail a trick the first time, it's actually kind of boring, because you think, okay, we did that, what's next? Whereas when we're trying to like figure something out, there's usually, if something's difficult, there's some little things you can change, and suddenly it becomes easy. And so we're figuring out together, like, oh, maybe if I straighten my legs here, or maybe if you can sort of pike more or straddle your legs and things, and then suddenly it works and it becomes smooth and easy. And I love that sort of discovery and learning together, and it's super nice celebrating together when something works. So I always feel really good afterwards.
Nice. So there's a bit of a physical puzzle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, moving slightly on, given that you like physicality, do you enjoy sometimes dexterity games like Yogi?
Funnily enough, I'm terrible at dexterity games.
Have you played my game Yogi?
I haven't. No, I've played. I have copies of, I think, 4 of your games. I have the one about beetroots. I have the one about balloons. I think there's maybe two of the monster games. One about the noises. I'm trying to remember. But Yogi I haven't played. And I saw even it's been translated. I think it was Board Game Space translated it into Arabic as well, right? Or was it?
It's been translated into like 20 different languages, which is super awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's really cool.
I was just curious about, it seems like a slight disconnect that you're focusing so strongly on cerebral games, as you say, but you've got this love of physicality.
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't know how to answer that other than, like, you're right, it is a bit of a paradox. I think perhaps the physicality in acro yoga is a little, there is sort of quite a bit of timing involved sometimes, but there's a lot of sort of connection with someone else, whereas sort of dexterity games in general, it's I suppose it's all down to me, and I don't feel I'm always that brilliantly coordinated. I played lacrosse for about 13 years, and I was still never that brilliant at throwing and catching.
Okay.
I played defense, where you not just had to hit other people, but it's much easier to hit a person than it is to catch a tiny little ball that's flying through the air. So
Hello, Ian. We're just talking about dexterity games before we get onto the main topic. And I mean, It's very unlikely to happen, Ben, but I would love to show you Yogi plus Yogi Guru mixed together to team mode, because I think that that
Yeah.
would be up your street, because
Oh, that
then
might
you
be
do
perfect.
actually have someone else that you're working with.
Mm.
Tokyo Highway is my latest, says Ian. Yeah, that's a lovely thing, but
Ah,
that
yeah.
I can imagine that being a little bit more. It's interesting how you've got small, um, delicate dexterity games. Like
Mm.
when people think of dexterity games, they normally think of stacking or
Mm.
placing or maneuvering or hooking things
I always
out.
think of throwing things usually. I think that's the part I'm
Hmm.
not so good at. That's what I think of with
Whereas,
dexterity games.
a big body thing like, yes, of course, Twister or Dancing Eggs or, oh my gosh, what's the one by Eric Martin? Body Party or
Mm.
Yogi by myself. I mean, any of these are a completely different experience. And
Mm.
it's interesting how, yeah, dexterity is a much bigger category than we give it
Yeah.
credit for sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Compared to something like worker placement, which is quite
Mm.
specific. Yeah.
Exactly, 100%. And as always, I want to encourage people to comment, ask questions from like
Mhm.
follow as we get into the main topic. So let's talk about it, Ben.
Mhm.
What exactly did you do? What did you offer people? What was the
Mhm.
start of this?
Yeah, I'll try and structure it as like a bit of a story of kind of the things I've done. And I'll say the nice thing about doing sort of a small game, and also I think if you don't really like marketing that much, like marketing can feel like the thing that is a bit of a chore. You don't really get direct feedback and you don't know if it's working that well. Whereas I've started to quite enjoy marketing more now because it feels like a place you can experiment a bit. It's almost a bit like doing game design. So that's going to be part of the story because some of the things I did work, some of them didn't work, and some of them are a bit more like, was it a success? The question is like, well, kind of. So that's going to be sort of the theme of how this went. Um,
And yeah, for sure, marketing, sometimes you get this feeling of, are people actually wanting to hear this, or am I
mhm,
annoying people? Am I doing too much? And
yeah.
presumably, when you're, hey, you can actually get something, and I'm giving you
Mhm.
something physical, that kind of helps with that emotion.
Yeah, and funny enough, actually, you've just reminded me of something. Whilst we were at the acrobatics teacher training, we had a session on social media use and sort of just some sort of basics around it. And one of the things that one of the other, I suppose, teachers sort of said is, she said, "Oh, I hate doing, the email list, and it always makes me really sad when I see that someone's unsubscribed because it's something that they're not interested in." And I thought about it and I thought, actually, you know what? Having people unsubscribe from your mailing list is a brilliant thing because it's probably worse, like
Mhm.
you say, to be having someone that you're annoying every month with an email that thinks, oh, I hate getting these emails. Whereas actually, if it's something they're not interested in, it would be better for them to unsubscribe. And you haven't really lost someone because even if you feel like, oh, I've lost someone from my mailing list, the person you've lost is the person that is the absolute least interested in your stuff.
Mm-mm-mm.
So you haven't actually lost anyone because it's a person that doesn't care about what you're
Yeah,
doing anyway.
fundamentally, it's a weird thing. Like, in theory, you'd already lost him at some point beforehand.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I have gotten to the point where I'm going to say 95% of the time there's, oh, hooray, I lost another subscriber because
Yeah.
I'm at about 1,000, and I know if I get to 2,001, then I'll have to start paying for it.
Yes, that's another good
And so
reason.
it's like, years ago it was like, I'll never get to 2,000, but now it's kind of like, I'm halfway there. Like, that's
Yeah.
actually a realistic proposition. And
Yeah.
I would like people to, like, on my Kickstarters, if I say, would you like to get my emails, then
Mhm.
absolutely, if people are interested, I would love a way to connect with them. But if
Mm.
they're not interested, I don't want them there.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, unsubscribes are a good thing. And nice to have a big clear button. And
And
I
so you talked about, like, to sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but at
that's
the
right.
start of the story, you're saying sign up to my mailing list, you get
Mhm.
something. So how do you
Yeah.
make sure that those people are actually interested and not
Mhm.
just there because of the free thing?
Yeah, that is a big one, and a lot of people will be there like just for the free thing. So yeah, maybe I'll talk about the giveaway a little bit. I did the giveaway. I think I ran some ads for it. I don't think. Yeah, I think I did run adverts for it as well to sort of get get signups. Instead of just having ads where you say, hey, if you're interested in this game and here's a pretty picture, maybe sign up for the mailing list, it was sort of offering the giveaway with ads. I think I also posted it in a couple of places, like on the Instagram, and even I sent it to my mailing list. So for existing fans and followers, I opened it up to them as well. And that added about 250 people signing up.
Nice. And
sort
when
of
you're
to that
talking
landing
about
page.
adverts, I assume you're talking about something small, like 50 quid spent on Facebook adverts or something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot. It was around, I remember thinking I was aiming for around, I know like a good benchmark for sort of a general mailing list sign up ad is around sort of $1 to $2 per sign up. And I think it was working out to be around that. So yeah, I suppose if I had 250 signups, that's probably around a couple of hundred quid, but I think it might have been a bit less than that. I don't remember the exact spend now.
Okay, so carry on with the story, please.
Yeah, so that was the getting everyone to sort of sign up. I did the giveaway. I offered 5 copies of the game, which was the envelope version, because I still had sort of copies left over from the previous Kickstarter, pretty cheap to mail out as well. And so I gave away 5 copies. So then of the 250 people that signed up, I thought, you know what, a lot of these people are going to be sign-ups that, I mean, for the cost of signing up, as in for the cost of typing in their email address, they've got a chance to win a free game. So there might be a lot of people that aren't that interested in MicroDojo or even what's coming next. They just think, well, if I get a free game, great. I mean, I think I would take almost any game if it's free, and
Yeah.
even if it's not my favorite one. But then I wanted a way to kind of re-engage with those people, because if they're people that just signed up for a free game and then they're getting my monthly email talking about what's happening with the campaign or what I'm doing with development, they might not be that interested in it. So when I kind of announced the winners, I think I announced the winners on Instagram, and then I emailed basically what I did in MailChimp was I tagged the winners with a little tag that has like, you're the giveaway winner, and then I tagged everyone else that had the sort of giveaway tag as the giveaway. I put non-winners. Originally, I was typing losers, and then I thought, actually, that's not very nice. I'll put non-winners in my tag. Not that anyone's going to see it except me, but I thought I don't want to have people on my list that I'm calling losers, so I called them non-winners. But I also tagged it with which campaign. So I think I did one around Christmas and one a little bit after that. I think I did a couple of campaigns actually. Then all the people that didn't win, I emailed them and said, look, I'm sorry you're not a winner, mainly because it's nice to know what happened with that giveaway you entered. I entered a giveaway recently and it says you can win like £100 of credit for freight shipping or something. So I thought, great, I'll do the survey. And there's nothing that says when the giveaway ends or how they're going to
Oh,
announce it or anything. So I think, well, actually, I never
that's not
know.
good.
No, you never know. So I emailed everyone that didn't win. And I said, look, I'm sorry you didn't win this time, but I'd still like to offer you a free copy of the game. Because I was sending the envelope version of the game, which was £5, and what I did with the campaign was offered basically either the deluxe edition of the game was 15, which came with the expansion, plus just a nice box and meeples for you to put your old copy of the game in, or you could pay 20 for the complete edition, so another £5, and you basically get that MicroDojo box filled with the copy of the game. So I then emailed everyone, said, look, you didn't win your free copy of the envelope edition, but if you pledge on the campaign or for late pledging for the sort of upgrade edition, which is as if you already owned the base game, then I'll manually edit the order so that you get the complete edition. And what I thought that would do would sort of, hopefully for people that entered and didn't win, they might still feel like, oh, well, actually, I still have got something out of this and might still be interested. It was also actually a way I was hoping of sort of getting people to back the sort of deluxe edition that wouldn't have done otherwise, to then think, well, I've already got this sort of free upgrade coming, I may as well still back the project. So that was kind of what I did for the giveaway.
Nice. And how many people did you get going for that 15 quid version? Sorry, are we talking dollars or pounds?
Pounds, yeah.
Okay.
So just through the sort of upgrade, like people that I think might not have backed otherwise. Well, let me put it this way. I went through the email list. Basically what I did sort of after the campaign was I took the emails of everyone that had backed the campaign kind of in one column. I took the list of everyone that had sort of signed up for the giveaway in another column, and then had them match and say, okay, if it's someone that's backed and was part of this campaign, from the 2 lists, then I made it highlight it in green so I could, or filter very quickly. And then for those people, I could then look them up in the pledge manager and kind of fix it in there. And there was probably about, I would say, 40 or 50 people, maybe a few more, that did that. So there's kind of good news and bad news. Like I think having sort of 40 or 50 people, that's like, yeah, I said 1/5 of the signups. That's actually a pretty good conversion rate, around 20%.
Mm-mm-mm.
I will say that some of those people, because the ads sort of reached existing fans and people that were going to buy the game anyway, there is potentially some people that were going to buy the game anyway that had done that. There were also a few in there that didn't realize they had the upgrade offer, so they just came and backed sort of for the full copy, and then I essentially gave them a discount sort of in credit. But I even had one person leave a comment saying, "Oh, why is my account showing sort of £5 credit left?" or something like, "Oh, I paid for shipping, but the price only came up to £1 or something. It doesn't seem right." And I said, "Oh no, it is right, like because you took part in the upgrade offer." And someone said, "Oh, I didn't realize I'd done that." Like, okay, thanks. So you could argue there wasn't really any benefit to offering someone that was going to back it anyway. But yeah, I'd say it was around sort of 50 people ended up kind of backing that and receiving the upgrade.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because on one hand you want to say, "Oh, if you want this, just reply and I'll sort it out for you," because
Yeah,
at least that way, you'd be doing it for the people who actually wanted it. On the
yeah,
other hand, if 3 months later someone finds out, "Wait a minute, I could have
yeah,
gotten this for free," that's like a really horrible feeling.
yeah.
And the question is like, how did those people react? Were they just like,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, thanks, I guess," or were they like, "Oh, hey, thanks"? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And it's really hard to tell that tone over the internet. But did
yeah,
you
that's right.
get any sense of that at all?
Um, so I also offered when I was at UK Games Expo. I was having people play just the base version of Micro Dojo, and I had lots of copies of the envelope edition basically to give it away. I was doing it as a giveaway to anyone that won. So you came back, you played. It's a two-player game, right? So whoever won got to take home a free copy of the envelope edition. But I was also giving people a little card where they could sign up again for the upgrade offer. So I said, look, if you've played at UK Games Expo and you won your free copy of the game, great. If you didn't win because you lost your game or whatever, then you can still get a free copy of the game. Just back it on the Kickstarter, and that led to probably about 10 people sort of backing and
Mhm.
receiving the upgrade. So for one, it was nice to sort of have those people then come and pledge after they'd played the game, but also those people seem to be much more appreciative of the offer. I think because we'd had a chance to talk in person, they'd played the game in person, whereas perhaps the people that had signed up for the giveaway, just signed up because it's a free game, probably weren't as engaged, and we didn't have as much of a
Mhm.
personal connection there, I think.
I mean, that's a really interesting thing. Play the game and the winner wins a copy. That's
Yeah.
a really powerful thing. I wonder if it was a multiplayer game,
Hmm.
would you have gotten the similar thing result?
Hmm.
Because that's definitely something that I might consider going forwards. Just
Yeah.
saying, hey, any demo, probably not of my games that take like literally 2 or 3 minutes, because that's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to give away. But anything that takes like half an hour, then yeah, it kind of makes some sense.
Yeah.
And with Micro Dojo, um, I assume that it's industry standards in terms
Hmm.
of the cost, in terms of the markup of the
Hmm.
product.
Hmm.
And I assume that when people were paying the um sorry, my notes are bad. Was it 15
So
quid for the
yeah.
and so they got to 5 quid, so they were getting a 20 quid pledge rather than a 15 quid.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Um,
so with that, they were then still paying shipping on top of that.
yeah, yeah, so it's allowed to pay for shipping and VAT as well. It actually, because they get a £5 discount, they pay a little bit less VAT if it's going to the UK or Europe. But yeah, that £5 giveaway though, they're receiving something that's worth £5, but it's not
Mm-mm.
costing me £5 to give that away.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's the
arguably
key
it's
thing.
costing me £5 if it's someone that was going to pledge 20 anyway and hadn't realised they'd got the upgrade. Then I'm just sort of giving away £5 of credit that they would otherwise have been happy to spend. But in terms of actually the difference, in fact, I contacted the manufacturer because they're printing so many copies of the game. I said, look, how much is it to get another? I think I asked for about a couple of hundred copies of the game. I said, just the box and the meeples, so basically not the punch board, the cards, and the rule book. But they're producing so many of them that the factory said actually there's no cost difference. So there's actually no real cost difference between an empty box with some wooden meeples in versus the one that's got the punch boards, because they've made think the total print run was about 13,000 once you include the sort of licensed copies in other languages. So yeah, it was such a marginal kind of difference.
Yeah, once you get to like the tens of thousands, it's very much all about let's homogenize everything and let's keep doing the same thing over and over. And the cost of a slight change to the process can be as expensive, if not more, than not having a few components in there, which is a really interesting thing, which is, of course, why you get European editions that have 5 different languages, and that makes much more financial sense than...
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've got a few games like that where there's about 10 rule books. And I think like, wow, I've got all these rule books I'm never going to use. But yeah, it's because when they're packing and everything, they can just do it once. Whereas probably the cost saving of printing, 100 less punch boards is going to be a few cents versus the time taken for them to pack the boxes differently and put them in the, create the packing list separately and all of that probably offsets that cost.
And also there's additional errors that might be brought in, because the more you do things differently, the more it's like, okay, we've got to keep these ones separate to those ones, and then we can't mingle them together. Whereas, it does strike me that doing a little bit of maths, so it costs you about £5 for each person that signs up, because if it's costing you about £1 per person on the mailing list, 1/5 of them actually backed it, that's £5. And so for that £15 thing, you should be getting more than £5. And whilst your game is a relatively cheap one, it's not the cheapest. I mean, obviously for something where I'm charging potentially £8 or £9 on a game, that's maybe a little bit more touch and go. And back when I was doing my Busy Bargain bags on Kickstarter for £5 for the entire game, that's completely unmanageable. But would you agree that, I mean, part of me is kind of like, oh, damn you, you've got to access to all this stuff. But would you agree that the more expensive your game is, the more you are able to really tap into paid for marketing and things like this, and giveaways and adverts for increasing your stuff?
I think for like ads, definitely. Like I feel like an advert probably, like I don't know if adverts convert differently for sort of cheaper games or more expensive games. Like if you think about how much effort it takes to sort of reach one more person that might be interested in your game, that effort in terms of advertising, work and spend is probably the same whether you're selling a $500 minis game or a $10 cute little micro game. So I found that I did run some ads after the campaign to sort of push people towards the pledge manager, with some really nice renders from Alexei that I think are super attractive. And I thought, if I saw this ad, I'd be like, oh, what's this? I think it's pretty enticing. And they really, I would say, just about broke even. But even that, I mean, as in like the pledge amount was break even on the advertising spend. So probably I've lost a little bit of money. We're talking, sort of 20, 30 quid there. But I probably ran the ads for about sort of £300-400 or so. And no, maybe less actually, probably about 100 or something, and managed to return sort of about that in pledges, like maybe 5 or 6 pledges. So yeah, I'm not for the microbots now for the next campaign. I'm not going to be running that many ads. I'm going to be looking at sort of other ways of spending our marketing budget to kind of get the word out there and see how that works.
It feels like the other thing that really went well for you is having 2 different versions of the game, like the super cheap version that it's not costing you that much. You can post it literally in a small envelope, which is less than £1, basically anywhere in the world. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. And then you've got this more expensive version that people are justifiably paying a little bit more for. And you've got this one thing that you can give away at UK Games Expo, give away as a cheap, hey, join the mailing list and you will get this game. Whereas you are still then able to say, oh, well, you've got that, or you didn't get that, you might want this more expensive thing. And yeah, there is some, and the fact that one actually slots into the other, it's just kind of, it feels like everything is perfect for the micro dojo kind of way it was. Do you think that there's a lot that is transferable for someone like myself or another designer, self-publisher who's watching this?
For sure. So Yeah, there's a few things maybe I should talk about. So one is that, so originally I think I was sort of an unknown designer. It was my first Kickstarter campaign, and I think a lot of the appeal of Micro Dojo originally was it's a cheap game with super cheap shipping. It was just about the right time when everyone was asking for more money with shipping and there were delays, and Micro Dojo was kind of ready to go within a month and printed locally and cheap to produce and cheap to ship and all of that. So I did offer the same thing again for the expansion and said, look, you can either get sort of the nice deluxe version with like wooden meeples and things, which have really sort of helped improve the game actually, because you can see the tiles underneath and things. But there's still also, because I knew the envelope edition was popular, I said, look, I'm going to offer the envelope edition. One thing I deliberately didn't do was offer the base game as an envelope edition. For two reasons. One, I wanted newcomers to the game or people that missed it before to have the deluxe version, because I really think that is the better one, and it's still fairly cheap. Sort of it's £20 for two games essentially, the base game and the expansion. But also to have a separate print run of the envelope edition for the base game and a separate print run for the envelope edition of the expansion, plus the deluxe version for the base game plus the deluxe version expansion was going to potentially be a bit complicated. So I thought, okay, the envelope edition was really popular, so people that had the game previously will want the envelope edition again. I looked at the number of backers for envelope edition versus the deluxe upgrade. So that's for people that already own the base game, either of those two pledges. And about 80% of people went for the deluxe version. So actually only about 1 in 5 really wanted the envelope edition again. People wanted the box and the meeples. So I think what happened is, for people
But
that didn't
that's
really
all
know the
your
game.
people who are already enfranchised. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
if you had offered it to newcomers, that envelope edition is a, hey, I still don't know this person, I'm going to take a chance on this game. Whereas it's worth bearing in mind that when you compare the envelope versus the deluxe now, it's for people who've already enjoyed the game and are thinking, well, this is a good game, it's worth me buying the expansion. And at that point, yes, it makes sense that they're already going to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right. And so, yeah, for new backers, the only option they had was the complete edition. I've just remembered another reason why I didn't offer the envelope edition was because the campaign was for the expansion. For people that wanted the envelope edition, they would have to get both the base game and the expansion in envelope edition, and then that breaks the shipping model. Basically, it bumps it up to large letter because there's two of them. So then actually, it's not that cheap to ship anymore anyway. And one thing I've actually noticed with, if people want the tracked shipping, so I also offered sort of basic shipping and then tracking to pay extra. So I like to give people as much choice as possible. The tracked shipping for the envelope edition is basically so expensive that I say, look, if you're buying the envelope edition and you need tracked shipping, you might as well pay the same amount of shipping and get the deluxe edition. So in the end, it only really works if you're buying one copy of the game in an envelope. Anything bigger, because yeah, I fit as much as possible into that one envelope the first time round.
Yeah, I mean, you did a really good job of working out what fits in an envelope and then essentially working backwards from it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
congratulations.
I would like to do that again. Like I said, I've worked on a few designs. Again, I wish I had a copy of the box to hand somewhere without wandering off. But the way I've designed the box, I think I mentioned that the box also fits in a large letter, but two of them next to each other fits in a C5 large letter box. Now, C5 was also the size of the letter that I used for Micro Dojo. So what I've planned, I do lose a little bit of space, unfortunately, but for my next designs, instead of designing it on one punch board that's 220 by 150 mil, which is the size Micro Dojo came in and is the size that fits an envelope, I'm actually designing it on two punch boards that fit in, it's about 110 by 135, I think. So those two fit inside the boxes, and that means if people want the envelope edition, then all we do is we produce, let's say 1,000 people want the deluxe edition and 500 want the envelope edition. Then the factory prints 1,000 boxes plus 1,500 of the punch boards, and then 1,000 copies of the punch board go into the boxes. The other ones just go straight into an envelope and get shipped out. So I'm still going to offer that kind of cheaper option for people.
And that little bit of extra thinness really makes a big difference in the shipping cost.
It does actually. So at least for the letters that were going out, I think originally it was about it was a bit less than this, but then I add in sort of the packing costs and all of that. But basically, I was offering like £1 shipping in the UK and £2 for the letter. That goes up to about, it's only about 250 for the UK for a large letter, and it's about £6 for the rest of the world. So it's once it goes up to that sort of larger size, it does get much more expensive for the rest of the world.
I mean, that seems like a really interesting conversation about fulfillment, and I know you've gone through lots of stuff.
Mm.
I wonder if we could even maybe have another conversation about that
Yeah,
one day in the not too distant future,
yeah.
because you've got lots of experience, and also with your working with fulfillment
Mhm.
agencies rather
Yeah.
than doing it yourself, and how
Mm.
you manage all that. Because, I mean, for me, and I'm guessing for lots of other people, the logistics is such a big part of it.
Mm.
And, but if you're up for that, then brilliant. And let's
Yeah.
get back and try to wrap up the ends
Get back
of
to the
this
giveaway.
story, of this
Yeah.
giveaway. So, in terms of what you actually did, is there
Mhm.
anything else that you would like to talk about that we've not
Mhm.
covered?
Yeah, a couple of things. So we talked about the cost of the game sort of being, the envelope edition. I think another reason I'd like to do envelope editions of the games in future is because it's really easy to give away. Not just give away things, but like at UK Games Expo, I probably gave away 100 copies of Micro Dojo, and uh, this might it might not be good business practice. We'll have to see as the company grows. But I love giving away games. Like even doing the whoever wins the game gets a copy. Like every time someone didn't get a copy, I felt like, oh, I kind of want to give you one too. Just seeing people enjoy it and play it. I really just want to. I think last year at Spiel, I took 100 copies with me thinking, oh, maybe I'll sell them there, if people are interested. And then actually by the time I got there, I thought, what, I just want to give them away to people because it's nice to give people a game and have people play it. So, but yeah, back to the giveaway. What I did.
Actually, no, tell me how you gave away stuff at Spiel.
Oh, so whenever I sat down and played a game with some random people, two ways. One, I was playing games with random people, and I said, "Hey, do you want a free game?" Like, and I just got one out of my bag, which I was carrying around with me. So whoever I met, basically, and had a nice conversation with, if I got introduced to other people, I was really honored. I gave a copy to, gosh, I'm going to forget his name now. The designer of Targi. I think is it Andrew Andreas? Something? Gosh,
Oh,
names just escaped
what?
me.
Doesn't
Um,
matter.
really, really lovely guy, like super, super nice. Really nice. And he came back the next day. We were hanging around the player lair stand, and he came back and saw me. He said, "Oh, I played it last night," and he said it's one of the most enjoyable games he's played so far at Spiel. And it was
Oh,
super
wow.
nice to have him say that.
That's
Yeah, and he's a
awesome.
really nice guy. So yeah, I was just giving them away to people. I also had, you can find it on my Instagram. I had a T-shirt with the Micro Dojo logo on, and I
Yes.
magnetized all the pieces. So the way I had carried it around is I had this big metal plate, which Chris
And
Backey bought
people could play
for me from the
literally on
UK.
your back.
Yeah, yeah. No one really did, but and the worst part, in Germany in was it October, putting on a t-shirt in the morning with this like cold metal plate against my back, like every morning was, and yeah, it was a bit of a mission. And carrying it
Mm.
around, it's quite heavy on the back. It was just a big square metal plate, to be
So
honest.
it sounds like you wouldn't do that part of it again.
I might because it was kind of fun. Like even through all the discomfort and things, it was just kind of silly. Um,
See,
and I
this
think
is I
magnetizing it
like
cost
your
me
style
about like
because
30
myself,
pounds.
a couple of years ago, I realized, when was it? 20, I think it was it actually just before the pandemic? I think it was 2019. So I had this cat wall and I had to pay UK Games Expo to erect this thing. And I was like,
Mm.
you know what? Having people draw cats and put them up on the wall, it does bring joy for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not really giving me sales. Is it worth
Mm.
doing? And then what I came away with was, why am I doing this if I don't allow myself to engage in my whims sometime?
Yeah.
Because we're doing this not just because, yes, ideally it makes some money, but also because it's fun to do and it sparks joy. And so I
Yeah.
decided, okay, I'm going to have my whimsy budget. And this year, my whimsy budget is, the cost of doing this. And then
Yeah.
in 2020, my whimsy budget was buying a balloon machine that
Mm.
literally you can stuff games into balloons. And so that finally came out
Wow.
at UK Games Expo 2022, 2 years later, because of,
I
pandemic.
wondered how you got them inside the balloons when I saw them there. I love the
But
idea of a whimsy budget though. Like
and I think that
yeah.
it's similar, that like it's a case of, yes, this might bring me a little bit of discomfort, but it also sparks joy, not just for other people, but for you.
Mm.
And if you're enjoying it, then other people can see that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I'd say like actually if I looked at how much UK Games Expo cost me, I'm not even going to count the flight back from Dubai. I'm just going to talk about being there, the train, and you know, the stand and everything. Probably spent about like £600 at UK Games Expo. Definitely didn't get that much back in backers and funding and things, you know, for the pledge manager. But like you say, like I had such a brilliant time. Like it was exhausting, but like I was also like full of energy every day because I'm like talking with people and seeing people play the game and you know, hearing the things they liked about it, seeing them smile. Like I love watching. There's usually a point about the middle of the game where I see someone go, oh, and they stop and think about what they're doing, and they've got to the kind of the interesting part of the game. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I just love watching those moments and just talking with people. And so yeah, it was totally worth it for that. So yeah, I like that perspective. I like the whimsy fund.
I think it's an interesting one because marketing, in one sense, okay, you're talking about your email list, and I think that's also something else that we could maybe talk about on another show, is actually going through the MailChimp facilities and what's actually there. But you can actually see this many people bought this, and some of them might have bought it anyway, but you can broadly say, okay, this many people translated, it was, you know, 20%, it was £5 per person, and did I make my money back? You can tell that straight away. But in terms of things that are more about the long-term stuff, because that game on the back, people are going to remember that. And I like to believe that, you know, when I was in UK Games Expo in 2019, and there were literally 2,000 pictures of cats on the wall. So the rule was you can only draw one cat per person per day. If you want to draw a second cat, you need to come back on another day.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then the other rule was it has to be at least 50% cat. So if you want to draw like a cat dog or a cat bee or a cat mer person, that's totally okay. And then the final rule was you could only use the colors red or black. And obviously white was on the card because, I had to implement that third rule when someone came with their own markers, and I felt really bad about it. But there was like a strong color scheme already, and it felt like it would be too much to then suddenly have people bringing their own colors in.
I really like that one per day idea as well, because actually, if someone really wanted, they could probably just come back and do another cat, right? Like, I don't know how good your memory for faces is, but certainly there'd be some people that could come back. There were a lot of people at UK Games Expo that said they'd already spoken to me twice that weekend, and I was like, I'm really sorry. Like,
honestly,
you know,
like if someone really wanted to do it, they probably could. And I'm sure there was at least one person where they were like, oh, what if my friend doesn't want to do one? Can I do one because I'm not here tomorrow? And I think there was like maybe 2 people out of several hundreds where we're like, okay, like like they kind of donated their thing, and they said they'd kind of do a token gesture. So we kind of made a big point of we're making an exception. But
the nice thing is, if someone really liked it, they will come back every day, and they'll come chat to you, and you get a chance to chat to them as well about like, oh, what have you seen at the con? You know, what games have you played? Like, how are you finding it? And it's a really nice way to
exactly. And then for my subsequent colouring in thing that I did at Tabletop Scotland this year, it was okay, that was actually a prize thing. And I wanted an entire deck to be coloured in by everyone, where I said, well, you get 1 entry per person per day, so you will potentially get a prize. And if you come back all the days, then you'll get more chances. But if you want to sit here and colour in like 10 things, then go for it. Because in that instance, I needed the entire deck coloured in by the end. And like there were a few people who were like, yeah, I'm going to sit here and colour in 4 or 5 things. And that was absolutely fine. And it did mean that we kind of ran out of stuff to colour in. But then by the time we ran out of cards for them to colour in, it was like, well, I've got a game about colouring in.
Try
this one. And so it was quite a nice thing. But yeah, this is the thing, like you're trying to spark joy. Like with games, we make games, we try to have the games be fun, but also everything that surrounds them, whether it's stuff on the back, whether it's giving away stuff, whether it's, and part of me thinks, oh, you should make it slightly more challenging to give away a thing. Like if you win 2 games in a row, like winner stays on, and then if they beat someone else, then they get a game. And have these things, but then at the same time, you want it to almost feel like, wow, really? You're giving me a game? And the nice thing there is you've kind of got someone who's already played it, they've presumably already enjoyed it, and are going to then play it again and bring more people into it. Because if a game is good enough, I strongly believe that it will continue to see exponential growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly hope so. And I mean, like we were talking about the cost of, picking up people through ads for the giveaway of being, let's say about £1, somewhere between $1 and
Mhm.
two, or probably about the same at the moment, aren't they? But yeah, say about £1 to get someone to sign up for the giveaway, and those are people that are pretty unengaged. Those envelope editions of MicroDojo cost me about £1 to print, maybe slightly more. But so giving that away, as you say, to someone that has played the game and has talked to me, or someone that's enjoyed it, like it's a much better way of having someone sort of engaged by giving them a game than by having them see an ad and click on it and give their email address. So the cost is almost the same, but hopefully those people that sort of have the game are much more interested in what I'm doing, and hopefully they will like the next one too.
Yeah, I love it. It's a really weird one in balancing those immediate sales versus the long-term growth, because yeah, I'm always facing this challenge of when I do my 2 p.m. events, how many, because that's my big thing. I want people to come over at 2 p.m. And in my mind,
Yeah.
it's always like, what do I give them? If I give them, let's say I give all the finalists, let's say 12 people come, which is typical for UK Games Expo. And then I say, okay, there's 5 finalists.
Yeah.
If I say these are the finalists, then do I give them all a copy of the games that they've just played? Because in one sense, they'll be like, wow, that's really fun. And now hopefully they'll go off and play it with other people, and that will see long-term
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it's also, I'm in this weird position where I'm kind of hoping to license these things, whereas you are very committed to this is what I'm doing and this is forever, right? Like you are not going to be licensing Micro Dojo to anyone else. It's always going to be Micro Dojo from Prometheus Labs.
Yeah, at least the English version. Yeah, the it's being translated, so that's licensed to other publishers, the translations. But yeah, it's still, I'm planning to sort of create and publish games rather than sort of sign. I may have games signed in future if they kind of don't fit the Prometheus Game Labs brand, which is sort of 2-player, quite cerebral, kind of 15 to 30-minute experiences. So yes, I may I may end up sort of licensing other ones in future if I get around to designing them, but
Yeah,
generally,
maybe you'll be
it's going to be
inspired
published.
to design a silly party game about acro yoga, like
Yeah,
kind of actually building people into that foundational aspects where you have to lift your teammates or whatever.
yeah. I've
You know,
thought
it's
about
all,
it. I've really got into PVC cards recently. So 99 Ninja is transparent PVC cards because you're tile laying on top of each other. We're looking at PVC cards for microbots, and I think if I could do some transparent PVC cards for the acro yoga game where you're building sort of stacks of people, that'd be pretty cool. But that's
do
another
you
one.
mean,
It's currently one page in my notebook
and
scribbled.
when you say stacks of people, you mean like fictional stacks of people where the people are just cards?
Yeah, so you'll be sort of you'll have like a base at the bottom, and then you'll try and put sort of
Yeah.
a flyer on top of that, and it'll make a pose, would be
I mean, I
where I'd
was
go with it.
imagining literally, stacks of people. That's what I'm hoping
Yeah.
for.
I mean, maybe if we can get, maybe if we can get more. Oh, you mean actual people? Sorry, I was thinking of the cards being a stack of people.
No,
Actual
I mean
people.
actual people. I mean the
Yeah,
actual players have to
yeah.
stack each other. Like they literally have to lift each other or do
Now
simple things to each other.
that would be fun.
So you're
I think if people are
basically
playing at
getting,
UK Games Expo, I might need to get some special insurance or something
yeah,
to
it's all
counter the
good.
injuries. But the acro yoga game I was making, I did want to teach quite a lot about spotting and safety as well, because it was intended as a sort of teaching aid as well. So yeah, maybe if we emphasize the spotting, it might work out okay.
So yes, we've had too many tangents. I do
Yes,
apologize.
no, me too.
So yes, there's a ridiculous amount of stuff to kind of unpack. So firstly, would you do this again in this exact manner if for one of your future games? Will you get the
Um,
opportunity to do it again in this exact manner, given that you might not have a small
mhm.
letter-sized version?
I can tell you what I'm thinking of for microbots, because there's a few
Please
things.
do.
Like I say, the outcome of this kind of giveaway. One thing I did right before the end is I emailed everyone that hadn't yet pledged that was tagged for the giveaway as a non-winner to say, by the way, you still have a copy of the game. And I worded it in such a way to saying like, don't lose your free copy rather than you can gain a free copy, because we're generally much more, people in general are much more sort of loss averse. So it feels much worse to say, oh, I've lost my, I've missed out on getting a free copy of the game, than it is to say, oh, I've got a free copy. People value it much more. It's why there's all this kind of, ending soon, and why Kickstarter has a time limit and all of this. So I emailed probably about 100 and something people that hadn't yet pledged. That only led to about 3 or so pledges. So on the one hand, it's a positive. That's what, £60 more for the cost of maybe half an hour drafting an email and sending it out to people, maybe closer to an hour. But it's also not a huge result, right? And that also means there's quite a few people on that list that are really not that interested in anything other than a free game. So yeah, would I do it again? I think having that many people on the mailing list that aren't engaged because it's just a free giveaway and a sign up, I think I would like to find another way to do it. The things I'm considering for microbots, not just giveaways, but a little bit more experimental. Because it's a mint tin kind of size, I've got it here. I realized actually this is exactly the same size. I don't think it's quite in camera. This is the same size as a business card. So I've got a whole load of business cards printed that look like the front cover of the mint tin, that are going out with the Microdojo fulfillment, saying, by the way, here's the next game if you're interested, and it fits in the size of this business card. The other things I'm considering trying for microbots is like a crowd sale type of thing. So the Game Crafter offers these crowd sales where the more people that pledge, the cheaper it gets.
Okay.
I don't like doing stretch goals that's content, because it's either not very well designed because it's rushed, or it just feels like, well, the content's designed anyway, so it feels a bit sort of false. And we're kind of limited with what we can do in terms of sort of monetary stretch goals. In terms of materials, the only one I would look at is PVC cards. So one of the stretch
I'm
goals
going to kind of jump in. I let you continue, but I just want to, give a little bit of pushback to the whole, it's not very good because it's rushed. And I think that the amount of time that something takes doesn't necessarily have any bearing on the quality of something.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think that also sometimes, I might be being a little bit defensive, because this is essentially for my last thing. I said, you know what, I'm not doing any stretch goals, but if you tell me what you want, then I will potentially spend a bit of time working these things out. And people told me that they really wanted a slow version of this game, which was designed to be a speed game. And I was like, okay, let me try a thing. And some people made I got one suggestion that sort of inspired a totally different thing. And because of that suggestion, I was like, oh, I've actually managed to work out a really good solo mode for this game, which I wouldn't have thought possible. And if the Kickstarter had done the bare minimum funding goal, which was it was barely nothing, I wouldn't have put any more time into it. I would have been like, okay, that was fine. It's worth me printing this, but it's not worth me doing any more. But as it is, it was like, okay, well, it's funded well enough that clearly there's some demand, and it's worth me putting a little bit more time in. And I think I would just kind of try and defend myself from any accusations of, oh, it was rushed, which, yes, I would agree with. Therefore, it's bad, which I disagree with. I just want...
No, that's fair enough. And I'd probably say this is maybe my perception of when there's new content being created. And also I'm thinking more for games where they're like, let's say it's, a big adventure game or a Euro game or something, and they say, oh, we're going to introduce this new faction or this new character.
I think the other thing
being
is
done last minute. It's
that I didn't promise these things. I said, because when people said, oh, we would like this stuff, I said, okay, I will spend some time doing it. That is the stretch goal. My stretch goal wasn't me saying, I will give you this. My stretch goal was saying, I will spend time seeing if this works out. And one of the things worked out, and I'll share it with everyone. At least one of the things didn't, so I'm not going to share that with everyone. But it was kind of a, hey, we'll go on this adventure together. And people were willing to do that. But yes, people normally aren't willing to do that with a bigger company, which...
No, exactly. I like that idea actually of saying,
understand the vagueness and the randomness in ideas, and I think that if people were willing to say, my stretch goal is a 50% chance at a solo mode, I don't know if it'll happen, but hopefully. But will people go on that adventure with you?
I do like the idea of offering sort of how much more effort you're going to put into the game, because essentially that's what we should be doing as designers and publishers anyway, which is if a game's super popular, you put in more time and effort because it's popular. If a game's not super popular, you say, well, you know what, we'll leave it as it is and call it finished and try and work on something new. So
And that's
yeah,
what
I
Matthew
do like it.
Dunstan and Rory Muldoon did with Voyages. I mean, if it hadn't gone as big as it had, then they wouldn't have kept making new maps.
Yeah. No, I really like that idea.
Sorry, so you were talking about what you would do next time. You were talking about not being sure, like the number of people. Yes, you might have made some money in the short term, but you've got these disinterested, uninterested people on your mailing list, which maybe isn't great. So you're talking about actually having physical mailing stuff, sending out this business card to show this is the cover of the game. And yeah, what else? Any other thoughts?
So I'm considering doing something like a crowd sale, like the Game Crafter does, which is instead of having stretch goals that are sort of increased things, because I've already packed in as much as possible, and also in terms of content, it's basically the game's going to be almost complete at launch unless there's any sort of really great suggestions we can fit in short term. So I want it to go into manufacturing and get shipped out as quick as possible, rather than waiting for another year in development. So I thought what would be nice to do actually was to offer it to people cheaper. So the more people that back, the cheaper it gets to manufacture. It'd be nice to pass on some of that saving to people. And that also I want to see if that encourages people to say, do you know what, like if you all told one of your friends, then you're going to save like a couple of pounds on this game maybe. So I'm interested to see how that would work. The way I would handle it is to offer it to people as a percentage of credit in the pledge manager afterwards. So let's say everyone backs it for £10. You can't really change that in Kickstarter very easily. But let's say it's like, do you know what, it's got 5% cheaper. So now you're actually going to get £10.50 in the pledge manager.
So what would that extra 50 pence actually give you? Would it
would basically
postage?
When you pay for sort of shipping and taxes, it would sort of offset some of that. So you are still sort of saving from your total. Let's say the total was going to be sort of £14 to actually finalize your pledge. Then actually you're still saving money overall. It's just you could see it as a discount on the shipping rather than on the game. But essentially it's giving people extra credit in the pledge manager. I don't know quite how I'll work that, but I thought that might be quite interesting as a thing to do on Kickstarter rather than just something new to try basically and see if it works, see if it makes a difference.
I really like that. I mean, I don't think that's something I would do for a variety of reasons, but I love that you're actually pushing Kickstarter in like the Kickstarter plus Pledge Manager combo to doing totally new things that I don't think I've seen done before outside of the Game Found, which you mentioned yourself. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, a fun one to try anyway. I mean, it'll be difficult to track how much that actually, because you don't know how good a campaign would have been without it, like whether it was double the size of it was because of these stretch goals or not. But yeah,
without time travel, we never really get true A/B testing, do we?
Yeah. And the last thing I was thinking of doing was I was trying to figure out what the stretch goal would be. But one of the sort of things I think with Kickstarter is actually have a lot of people that have backed it that have never played the game and are not interested really in playing it on Tabletop Simulator. They'll just back it because it looks cool or because other people have backed it or it's a cheap price or whatever. And then they're waiting months and months to actually play this game. And then it gets all the excitement of people saying, hey, I've played, this game arrived in the post. But by the time everyone's posting about it on social media, then other people say, oh, that looks really cool. Where can I get it? And the answer is, well, you've already missed it. Like maybe it'll be in shops in a few months. And then all the excitement's gone. Micro Dojo is in alpha testing at the moment on Board Game Arena. It's really cool actually playing it on Board Game Arena online. It's nice and simple. Had a volunteer developer for that. But I've been using that as a sort of test of the whole process to see how easy it is to get a game on Board Game Arena. I'm going to try and get Microbots up on Board Game Arena sort of public version before the campaign is live. And I thought a fun stretch goal would actually be to say, hey, if X number of games get played on Board Game Arena, we can sort of unlock some stretch goals. And then actually you're encouraging people in the campaign not just to back it or not just to share it, but to actually go online and play it now before you get your physical version. Kind of get into it, see what you like.
I really like that. I almost feel like there should be a constant thing because the death spiral of any game on Board Game Arena is a really problematic thing, right? Because things come out and then are new, and let's say there's a few people trying, let's say your game is popular enough that people are constantly wanting to play it, then people will be like, oh, that's a game that I can play, and then that will lead to more and more people constantly playing it, not just with their friends, and it's a virtuous cycle. But as soon as someone has to wait longer than 5-10 minutes, it's like, yeah, what's the point of me even doing this? And that's never going to be played again at that point, outside of people inviting specific friends for it, which is kind of sad. And I don't know if you saw, Ladies and Gentlemen, where the designer went against terms of service in a couple of ways, and actually said the person with the best rank will get 10% of this campaign's money. So
Oh, right. Wow.
they basically said 10% of the total goal of this campaign will go to the person who's number one ranked for this game when the campaign ends. And they were hoping that that person would be someone who's played it lots and lots. But as I kind of suspected, if they had asked, it was someone who'd played a couple of games, done really well, and then stopped playing, because then you don't want to.
Yeah.
And so they were understandably a bit sad about that, but then because of Kickstarter it being against terms of service, and Kickstarter said, if you do this, we will take your thing, they said, because of Kickstarter, I am having to go against my word. And so
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because I've just had a thought. I'll need to read the terms and conditions a bit more closely as well, because that sort of crowd sale idea where we offer more credit, it might need to be a little bit different, because yes, I need to read the terms, because if it's something like where they say you can't offer people something in exchange, you can't offer them money in exchange for pledging, perhaps credit in the pledge manager is essentially the same thing. Whereas if it's a reduced shipping cost, then it's not.
I mean, with that one, it was
I'll need
straight
to read
up
that
money being sent to your bank account, so it was very different. But yeah, it's always worth double checking.
I'm glad. Good reminder. Yeah.
But yeah, like just saying, okay, if we get this many games, and I think having different stretch goals, saying if we get this many games, this will happen. If we get this many games played, this will happen, and almost having like a stretch goal for every month, how many games are played, because like, what can you offer people? Because in my mind, I've got a game up there, a couple, and it's still in beta, and people are playing it, people are enjoying it. There's like almost 2,000 games played, which is great.
Nice.
But once it actually launches, which I would like to do at the same time as a Kickstarter for that game, how do I make sure that it doesn't just go into the death spiral? And that's a critical thing. And your idea of having stretch goals during the Kickstarter is a really nice one. But then how do you ensure that that continues after the Kickstarter?
Good question. Can I answer that after the Kickstarter, and we'll see if it's still alive or not?
Please do. I will be very interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. You know, one other thing also is we can get a ton of. We've done a lot of testing. We're pretty happy with where the balance is. But because Board Game Arena gives you lots of data about. I mean, you can get tons of data about who chose what robot, what cards they bought, what the score difference was, you know, how many times this card got played, all of this stuff. We could kind of mine that data just before we print and say, do you know what? Actually, it looks like after 1,000 games that this particular card actually is a little bit too good, and it can let us do some tiny balance tweaks just before we publish, which would be quite nice. We're pretty happy with how it is at the moment, but there's always, you know, after 1,000 plays, we might find, oh yeah, you know what? This bot always wins way too much. Let's just tweak that a tiny bit.
I've not worked out, so you can get aggregates of the data, because I seen that if back when I had a premium, I could see the data on people's endgames, but you're saying there's a way to actually check it.
I believe so. Anyway, I haven't seen any yet because the game's not live. But yeah, I believe as a developer, you can pull like stats and things about how many games were played.
I've been told that, but I might have to have Ian Paravel on the show or something to explain it to me and anyone else watching. But yeah, I think unless you have any other thoughts for other people, we have already gone a bit over time.
Yeah, we can probably talk for another few hours.
I feel like we should kind of wind down, and let's wrap up if that sounds good to you. Now, I've asked you lots of questions, Ben. Do you have a question you would like to ask me? Question of the day. Question of the day. What's a little question before we go on our way? Question of the day.
Question.
Question of the day from
Um,
Ben Downton.
do you play solo games?
Do I personally play solo games? Um, I wouldn't say that I habitually play solo games, but certainly, like right now, if there was something that was super easy, like the times when I would like to play solo games, it's when my brain is kind of dying
Mm,
and I have almost no capacity for sensible thoughts.
hmm
And this is actually partially why, when I was at the Habba stand at Spiel this year, and I saw some of their logic games, I was thinking, you know what? These logic games that are aimed at 6-year-olds might actually be a better fit for the times that I play logic games
hmm
than an actual adult thing, because I don't play logic games when I'm alert or anything. I play
mm,
them when I'm like, oh my gosh. So I would say, yeah, just I tend to never replay solo games, at least.
mm.
I would
Yep.
say that um, I like solo games as a way of learning the game. I Something like Skull, I played it 3 times yesterday on my
hmm
stream, where it was like 5 minutes ago. And if I've not cracked a puzzle, I will go through it again. But I much prefer the solo game to be something like a puzzle to teach me
hmm
about the thing.
Yep.
I don't like the idea of, oh, a solo game has to be have a good amount of randomness and then it has to. No, I mean, if anything, I like for Energy Empire, I know
hmm
this is cheating, but I basically stacked the deck because I wanted to work out what is the best solo game score that I can
Mm.
get. And
Yep.
kind of went through it properly, but just allowed me myself to when I would take a card randomly, I chose what it was. And so it's like,
hmm
okay, like this is clearly not comparable to other people, but it's a theoretically possible score. And
Yeah.
working through that puzzle for me was a nice thing. And
Mm.
that's the way that I would personally play solo games. How about you? And how about anyone else watching? Do you
hmm
play solo games, Ben?
The reason I asked is because I've got Tainted Grail set up on my living room table at the moment. It's been there for about a week.
Okay.
I'm on to the third campaign, I think. I played it first maybe a year or two ago, and I think I played something like 25 hours over about 5 days. This one's been on there for a week, and I
Wow.
just take a few turns here and there when I'm wandering past and sort of sit and take a break for 20 minutes and carry on playing. So it's all like set up and it doesn't get packed away until the entire campaign's finished. So I've been really enjoying that. But I was thinking what you were saying about sort of the more puzzly games. I wouldn't say maybe you'd call it a puzzle. But if you want to play a solo game when you kind of your brain's dying and you want something that's not too kind of intense, I suddenly thought Micro Macro might be a nice one to play solo because
Hmm.
I've had that where I think I had it out on my table one evening and just had a nice evening kind of looking around trying to solve the crimes and see what was going on. That's quite a fun one that's not too crunchy, let's say.
Yeah, I just got that not too long ago. I did the tutorial and then I did the second one, and yeah, like the first proper mission, I was, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is like I'm struggling with this
That was
already.
a
So
struggle.
like it was like, as I say, it's basically when I'm sick is when I play these things.
Yeah.
But that's a lovely question. And at this
Mhm.
point, over to you. What are you up to? You can share bottom if you want to. So, personally, what are you up to today? Is there things that you have to do,
Mhm.
or are there things that you would like to do? Personally, I definitely have to recover, but I also feel like I have to start like I definitely want to, even if I am going to sleep a good chunk of the day away
Mhm.
again, I definitely want to, before I snooze, go to the park and see the
Mhm.
ducks and then come back. So I actually get to
Mhm.
walk for like half an hour, maybe even an hour during the daylight, maybe do a little bit of reading will be really nice. And that will feel like a bit more of an accomplishment.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of things that I have to do before Wednesday, but my personality is, oh, that's loads of times. Like I've got loads of, like, yeah, I've got a Kickstarter that I'm running on Tuesday, but that's 2 days away. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
It'll be fine.
but yeah, if I have any energy, I will be doing little bits of rule writing and trying to get. I mean, when I do my bargain bags, I have to get it on front and back of one single card, which is its own kind of
Mhm.
challenge. So I'll see, like, sometimes writing rules when I'm brain dead, it means that's how you use simpler words, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, if I need to sleep, I will sleep and there will be no guilt. I can tell you that much.
Brilliant. That's good.
How about you? What are you up to?
I played some Tainted Grail this morning before our call. I was going to go for a swim and I conveniently forgot about that, so maybe I will go. I'm going to a barbecue in about an hour and a half at a friend's place. I'm also slowly working on an improved solo mode for Twilight Inscription, the roll and write for Twilight Imperium that came out a couple of weeks ago, maybe probably a month actually. It was about a week before when it arrived here. So I spent some time working on that. There's a big spreadsheet at the moment with lots of sort of different abilities and things to make it more exciting, and I'm just sort of doing the jigsaw puzzle of thinking of an interesting ability and adding it into a box, and then
You're just a bit sad with the solo mode that they included in that game.
it's good. It is good. The downside is it's sort of the same game every time. So you pick your faction, of which there's like 24, so there's lots of different things to do. But then the AI is really sort of a timer, it's sort of a structure to give you let's say a deadline or a scoring sort of benchmark. But it does the same thing every time essentially. Whereas I thought, wouldn't it be fun if you were playing against one of the other of the 24 factions? So
you're
trying to
trying
work
to make a
in.
proper Automa.
Not so much an Automa, but basically it's kind of a combination of the Hadrian's Wall campaign. What I liked about the Hadrian's Wall solo campaign was it gave you certain victory conditions, so it made you play in a way like it will say, okay, I don't know, maybe you have to complete the resource track or you have to finish the wall, but you also can't convert any of your workers to soldiers or something like that. So it makes you play the game in a slightly different way each time. So what I thought we would do is have things that kind of warp the game rules a little bit that also feel thematic for the faction you're playing against. And then the sort of major faction in Twilight Imperium is the Council Caleris. I've got them as like your final boss. So you basically play 3 rounds against 3 randomly chosen opponents, and then you gain their abilities to use in this really huge sort of final difficult version of the game. So I think it's going to be really fun. It's been fun to design anyway. We'll see how it goes
Nice.
when it's out.
I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you
And
too.
I guess it's time to recap and wrap up before we finish up. So we talked about so much stuff today. I mean, we started off talking about Spiel, and like at UK Games Expo, you kind of almost get more people and more excitement because there's little enough stuff that people can spend the time wandering around and seeing everything. Whereas at Spiel, it's like, oh, I can't see everything, but I've got to see as much as I possibly can. We talked about what you're doing next with microbots and 99 ninjas. We talked about it being sometimes hard to actually get those designs started, and you enjoy development a little bit more than design these days. And it's really interesting to see what will come next. We talked about large letters, design versus development, acro yoga, rings of power, greener grass, house of the dungeon, and making a little physical puzzle with acro yoga tiles. We talked about marketing making you sad, spending £200 to get 250 sign-ups where you give away 5 copies of the envelope version, and then you email all the non-winners. You say, hey, you could still get, well, not you could still get, but don't miss out on your £5 upgrade, because that's critical.
Yep.
Saying, hey, don't miss out on this thing. And then that they still have to spend 15 quid to get that free £5 upgrade. And we talked about the difference of utility in paid ad for more expensive games, where it makes a lot more sense. Because obviously for me, £5 per person for some of the Kickstarters I've run, where your entire pledge might be £5, that's completely unsustainable. Whereas for a game where it's 50 quid, well, brilliant, let's have at it. And we talked about cheap shipping, trying to minimize the number of SKUs that you've got, like the different discrete number of games, and trying to simplify what you offer. We talk about, tracked things, the cost of postage and fulfillment, and the C5 and the large letterbox, which hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit more about on another day. We talked about giving away 100 copies at UK Games Expo, being like, you won this game. And that's something else I'd like to chat about, whether they knew that they were getting this game or not. And like, there's so much that we could learn from each other for spiels, I'm sure, and like talking about just giving it away to people that maybe you have a good conversation with, and then they play the game, and then they come back and say, "Hey, that was a great game. Well done, Ben." And obviously, that feels amazing. We talked about having discounts, board game arena, microbots, maybe using some of that data in order to teach you, oh, this number should be one more, or this. And when you've got a bit of knobbiness, as they call it in, when you can tweak a lot of knobs, because maybe in a simpler game you don't have so many numbers that you can tweak, whereas if you've got a couple of numbers on the card and maybe there's enough granularity that you can increase it by one, and you're not sure, should this be 2, should this be 3? Well, you've got a pretty good sense of it after 100 playtests. But after 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 playtests, of course, you will know so much better. And I'm sure that you'll get thousands upon thousands of playtests, no doubts in my mind. Talking about solo games, talking about me going to the park, preparing for a Kickstarter next week, where I should mention that that's going to be a Kickstarter for 4 games. You will be able to choose any one of these games, which are previously in bags, and I'm putting them in small boxes. So there's a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. There's a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements. And there's also 2 speed games. One is for 2 to 4 players, highly chaotic, a game about quickly matching words to pictures, but never words to words or pictures to pictures. Oh, no. And there's a game about counting cat shapes and colors that keeps getting trickier, which is good for the larger player counts because it's also self-balances. We talked about swimming and barbecues and making a new solo mode for Twilight's Inscription. We had a lovely chat. Is there anything else you want to say before we skedaddle?
So one last story about the giveaways. I said it's sometimes difficult to track what's what, and I had a comment from someone on the Kickstarter for the expansion that said, I got a copy of Micro Dojo when I met the designer Ben at Essen, and he gave me a copy on the train, and we chatted about our favorite games on the train back to Düsseldorf, and he said he was a really nice guy, and now I'm really happy to back the expansion. So it didn't show up in any of my data or statistics, but it made me super happy. And
well,
it's
that's
nice.
Data. I mean, that's one bit. That's one bit of datum, I think, is a singular.
Yeah,
but
so that's the best part of a giveaway.
I think having those actual stories, that is absolutely far more meaningful. That's far more affirming and validating as a designer, as a publisher.
Yeah.
And we talked about the whimsy budgets. Obviously, that's super important. If you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in basically all the places. If you want to check out what I'm up to on future streams, then check out stuffbybez.com/streams. What am I up to? Oh yes, tomorrow I'm meeting Don Eskridge, the designer of Resistance and Avalon, and we'll chat about all sorts of stuff. On Tuesday, I'll be doing something about my Kickstarter as I launch it, and Wednesday with Alan Paul. But, look up the future. We've got the 800th show. 800th show coming up in 2 weeks exactly. Share, spread the word. And if you would like to find out, where Ben is, Ben, where do you most like to be found?
I'm mostly on Facebook. I do post stuff on Instagram as well. I see all the links. Oh, yes, here they are. Yep. Follow those links, particularly the bottom one for microbots.
Okay. And for anyone who's watching this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, then you'll see the links in the chat. If you're watching this on Twitter, then you'll have to type it out. Sorry. That's so. Yes, at this point, I want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's been here and done a little bit of chat, said hello, whatever. Thank you, most importantly, to Ben. Thank you for suggesting this. It has been a lovely thing. And there's only one thing left to say, which I hate to do, but, we're already half an hour, over schedule. So for all of you out there, lots of love, and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Thank you, Ben, for being here and chatting along. Bye bye, bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye, bye bye. We chatted about Micro Dojo. Bye bye, everyone. Bye bye.